The howl pierced the darkness like a jagged knife, freezing the blood in my veins. It wasn't the cry of any ordinary wolf. This sound, primal, ancient, and terrifyingly close, carried something human in its undertones, a distorted echo of consciousness that shouldn't exist in an animal's call. I dropped the flashlight. The beam spun wildly across the forest floor before settling on a twisted oak root. My hands trembled as I fumbled to retrieve it, painfully aware of how exposed I was on this moonlit trail. The dense Missouri woods that had seemed merely atmospheric an hour ago now felt like a trap slowly closing around me. Another howl, closer this time. The hairs on my neck stood rigid. This wasn't how tonight was supposed to go. I was just documenting local folklore, a side project to my journalism career, recording old-timers' tales about the beast of Blackwater County for a podcast series. Harmless stories, local color, nothing real. The blood-soaked footprint before me suggested otherwise. It was massive, far larger than any wolf print should be, and disturbingly elongated, like a wolf's paw stretched into something almost human. The blood glistened black in my flashlight beam, still wet. Recent. Movement flickered at the edge of my vision. I whirled around, the flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, illuminating nothing but trees and mist. But I knew with sickening certainty that I wasn't alone. "Hello." My voice sounded pathetically small against the vastness of the night. "Is anyone there?" Only the wind answered, rustling through the autumn leaves with a sound like whispered threats. "I'm Michael Reeves, 33, a journalist from St. Louis who never believed in monsters. At least not until tonight. Now as I stand trembling in Blackwater Forest, miles from civilization, I'm forced to confront the possibility that the legends I've been investigating aren't just stories after all. The locals had warned me not to come to these hills after dark, especially not during a full moon. They spoke of disappearances dating back generations. Hikers, campers, and locals who ventured too far into the woods at night and were never seen again. Or worse, those who were found in pieces, their remains scattered and partially devoured. I'd smiled politely at their warnings, attributing them to rural superstition and an overactive collective imagination. Now, with night fallen and miles of dark forest between me and safety, those dismissive thoughts seemed like the height of arrogance. A branch snapped loudly to my left. I jerked the flashlight toward the sound, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Two eyes reflected the light, yellow, intelligent, and fixed directly on me. They were positioned too high off the ground to belong to a normal wolf. As I watched, paralyzed, the eyes blinked once, deliberately. "Stay back!" I shouted, my voice breaking. "I'm armed!" A desperate lie. A low, rumbling growl was the only response, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Then the eyes disappeared, melting back into the darkness. I ran. Blind panic propelled me down the trail, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly. Branches whipped against my face, tearing at my clothes and skin. I had no plan beyond desperate flight, no destination except away from those eyes. The forest floor suddenly disappeared beneath my feet. I tumbled down a steep embankment, rolling through dead leaves and sharp rocks before splashing into the icy waters of Blackwater Creek. The cold shock ripped the breath from my lungs. Gasping, I dragged myself to the creek bank and collapsed, taking inventory of my injuries. Nothing seemed broken, but my left leg throbbed where it had struck a rock, and warm blood trickled from a gash on my forehead. Miraculously, my flashlight had survived the fall. I retrieved it from where it had landed and swept the beam around, trying to orient myself. The embankment I'd fallen down loomed steep and tall. Going back the way I'd come wasn't an option. That's when I saw it, a cabin partially hidden among the trees about 50 yards downstream. Light glowed faintly behind curtained windows. Civilization, safety. I limped toward it as quickly as my injured leg would allow, constantly glancing over my shoulder. The night seemed to press in around me, alive with malevolent intent. As I drew closer to the cabin, details emerged. It was old but well-maintained, with a small porch and chimney. A thin wisp of smoke suggested a fire inside. A pickup truck was parked nearby. I staggered onto the porch and pounded on the door. "Hello," Please, I need help. Silence. I knocked again, harder. Please, there's something in the woods. The door creaked open a few inches, held by a security chain. A weathered face appeared in the gap, an elderly man with sharp eyes that assessed me suspiciously. What are you doing out here at this hour? His voice was gruff, hostile. I'm lost. Something's after me in the woods. Some kind of animal. Even now, I couldn't bring myself to say the word that was forming in my mind. His eyes narrowed. What did you see exactly? I don't know, something big. Not a normal wolf. Please, can I come in? Just to use your phone? He studied me for a long moment, then closed the door. I heard the chain slide free before the door reopened. Get in, quick. I stumbled inside, overwhelmed with relief. The cabin was spare but comfortable. A single room with a kitchenette, a wooden table, 2 chairs, and a bed pushed against the far wall. A stone fireplace cast warm light and shadow across the space. The old man secured the door with multiple locks and a heavy wooden bar. Sit, he commanded, gesturing toward the table. I obeyed, wincing as my injured leg protested. You're bleeding. He retrieved a first aid kit from a cupboard and set it on the table. Clean yourself up. As I tended to my wounds, he moved to the window and peered out through a gap in the curtains. His body language was tense, vigilant. My name's Michael, I offered. Michael Reeves. I'm a journalist from St. Louis. Earl Crowley, he replied without turning from the window. What brings a city journalist to Blackwater Forest after dark? I'm researching local legends, the beast of Blackwater County. He turned then, his expression hardening. Damn fool thing to do. Those aren't just legends. So I'm starting to understand. I pressed a bandage to my forehead. What I saw out there was real, he finished. Been real for generations. My granddaddy saw it. My daddy too. Now you. A werewolf? The word felt ridiculous leaving my mouth, but Earl didn't laugh. Something like that. Something that used to be a man but ain't anymore. Not fully. He returned to the table and sat heavily. How much do you know about these hills? Not much, just the stories I've been collecting. Disappearances going back decades. Animal attacks that don't quite make sense. Earl nodded. First documented sighting was 1843. Trapper named William Blackwood. That's who they named the county after. Described a wolf that walks like a man. Nobody believed him, of course. Then people started disappearing. A particularly strong gust of wind rattled the cabin windows. We both jumped. Do you have a phone I could use? I asked. My cell has no service out here. Landline's been down 3 days. Storm last week took out the lines. He gestured to a dead phone on the wall. Radio's busted too. My hope deflated. Your truck then? Could we drive to town? No keys. My son took them when he went for supplies yesterday. His expression darkened. He should have been back this morning. The implication hung heavy in the air between us. So we're stuck here, I said. Till morning at least. That thing out there, it hunts mostly at night. Come dawn, we can try to make it to the ranger station. It's about 5 miles east. 5 miles through the forest. The prospect made my stomach clench. Any weapons here? Earl reached under the table and produced an ancient-looking shotgun. Just this. 6 shells left. He laid it on the table. Won't kill it, but might slow it down. Won't kill it? What does kill it? Silver, supposedly. Never been tested as far as I know. Nobody who's gotten close enough to try has lived to tell about it. I was about to respond when a sound froze the words in my throat. Scratching, soft but distinct, at the cabin wall outside. Both of us went utterly still, barely breathing. The scratching moved slowly around the perimeter of the cabin, like something testing for weaknesses. When it reached the door, it stopped. For several heartbeats, there was nothing but silence. Then a voice, a human voice, ragged and desperate, called out, "Hello, is anybody there? Please help me, I'm hurt." Earl and I exchanged glances. His expression was grim, warning. "Please," the voice called again. "There's something in the woods. Let me in." I half rose from my chair, but Earl's hand shot out, gripping my arm with surprising strength. "That ain't human," he whispered. Not anymore. How can you be sure? I whispered back. The voice outside changed tactics. Michael? Michael, I know you're in there. Please help me. My blood ran cold. I hadn't told anyone my name since entering these woods. The scratching resumed, more aggressively now. It moved to the windows, then to the roof. Inhuman growls mixed with all too human pleas for help. Earl positioned himself by the fireplace, shotgun ready. I grabbed a heavy poker, feeling pathetically underprepared. The assault on the cabin intensified. Scratching became pounding, wood splintering under powerful blows. The entire structure shook. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, everything went silent. We waited, tense and ready, but nothing happened. Minutes stretched by. Is it gone? I whispered. Earl shook his head. Hunting ain't just about strength. It's about patience too. We maintained our positions, listening to the night. The fire crackled, the wind moaned. Outside, an owl hooted, a normal, natural sound that was somehow reassuring. An hour passed this way. My injured leg throbbed and exhaustion pulled at me, but fear kept me alert. When the window across the room exploded inward in a shower of glass and splintered wood, there was no time to react. A massive form hurled itself through the opening, a blur of dark fur and glinting teeth. Earl fired, the shotgun blast deafening in the confined space. The creature yelped but didn't fall. It collided with him, sending both crashing into the stone fireplace. I caught only glimpses of the thing as it moved. Larger than a wolf, its body a grotesque hybrid of human and animal. Fur covered but with an almost human torso. A wolf's head with two intelligent eyes. Hands that were nearly human but tipped with savage claws. Earl screamed as those claws tore into him. I lunged forward with the poker, driving it with all my strength into the creature's side. It howled in on a sound that curdled my blood and whirled toward me. I found myself staring directly into its eyes. They were yellow, feral, but with unmistakable human awareness behind them. Recognition even. It knew me. The creature lunged. I stumbled backward, tripping over a chair and sprawling on the floor. The shotgun lay a few feet away where Earl had dropped it. I scrambled toward it as the werewolf closed the distance between us with frightening speed. My fingers closed around the shotgun's barrel just as the creature leaped. I rolled onto my back, brought the weapon up, and fired. At such close range, the blast caught the werewolf full in the chest. It crashed to the side, howling in pain and rage. Dark blood splattered the cabin floor. I staggered to my feet, pumping the shotgun to chamber another round. The werewolf was already recovering, gathering itself for another attack. I fired again, hitting it in the shoulder. The creature retreated to the far corner, snarling. Its yellow eyes never left mine as it backed toward the shattered window. With one final, hate-filled growl, it leaped back through the opening and disappeared into the night. I rushed to Earl, but it was immediately clear that nothing could be done. The werewolf's attack had been devastatingly efficient. His throat and chest were torn open. His eyes stared sightlessly at the cabin ceiling. Nausea and horror overwhelmed me. I staggered back to the table and sank into a chair, still clutching the shotgun. Outside, a triumphant howl rose, mocking me. I checked the shotgun. 3 shells left. The night stretched endlessly ahead, with dawn still hours away. The werewolf was injured, but not fatally. It would be back. That much I was certain of, and next time, it would be more cautious. I checked every window, every door. The broken window was the obvious vulnerability. I dragged the heavy wooden table across the room and positioned it as a barricade, but it wouldn't hold against a determined attack. In desperation, I searched the cabin for anything that might help. Earl had mentioned silver. In the kitchenette, I found a set of old silverware. Pure silver? Probably not, but perhaps silver-plated. It was better than nothing. I took a knife from the set and placed it in my pocket. The shotgun would be my primary defense, but if it came to close quarters again, the knife might be my only hope. Hours passed. I maintained a vigil, moving between windows, listening to the night sounds. Occasionally, I'd glimpse movement at the forest's edge, a shadow darker than the rest, watching the cabin, waiting. As the night deepened, exhaustion and blood loss from my injuries began to take their toll. I found myself drifting, jerking awake with terrifying images behind my eyelids. I needed to stay alert, but my body was betraying me. Coffee. I needed coffee. I moved to the kitchenette and found an old percolator. As I filled it with water, a photograph on the wall caught my attention. Earl, younger, standing beside another man outside this very cabin. They were both smiling, holding up fishing gear. I leaned closer. The other man looked oddly familiar, though I couldn't place him. Something about the eyes. A sound from outside snapped me back to alertness. Footsteps on the porch. Human footsteps. "Hello? Dad? Are you in there?" A man's voice, normal, concerned. I froze, Earl's warning echoing in my mind. The werewolf had tried this trick before. "Dad?" The truck broke down. I had to walk back. "Open up, it's freezing out here." I moved silently to position myself beside the door, shotgun ready. "Who's there?" I called. A pause. "Who's that?" "Where's my father?" This is James Crowley, the man in the photograph, Earl's son, or so it claimed. "Your father is dead," I said bluntly, watching for a reaction. "What? No. What happened? Let me in, please." It sounded genuine, shock, grief, confusion, but the werewolf had sounded convincing earlier too. "Step back from the door," I commanded, "where I can see you through the window." "What? Who are you? What's happened to my father?" "Step back to the window or I'll shoot through this door." Silence, then the sound of movement. I peered through the intact window beside the door. A man stood on the porch, mid-30s, bearded, dressed in flannel and jeans. He looked exactly like the younger man in the photograph, only older now. "What's happened to my father?" he demanded again. Something attacked him, something from the forest. I kept the shotgun trained on him through the window. "How do I know you're really his son?" "What kind of question is that?" "Look, I don't know who you are, but I need to see my father. Now." His reaction seemed genuine, but so had the voice earlier. I couldn't risk it. "You'll have to wait until morning," I said. "I'm not opening this door." Anger flashed across his face. "My father could be dying in there. He's already dead, and if you're really his son, you know what killed him. You know what's out in those woods." His expression changed, understanding dawning. "It came here? To the cabin?" I nodded. He glanced over his shoulder at the dark forest. "Let me in, please. It's not safe out here." "That's exactly why I'm not opening this door. I don't know who or what you really are." Frustration and fear battled on his face. "How can I prove it to you?" "Ask me something only James would know." It was a reasonable request, but useless to me. "I never met your father before tonight. I don't know anything about your family." He ran a hand through his hair, thinking. "Look in the fireplace mantle. There's a hidden compartment on the right side. Inside is my mother's locket, gold, heart-shaped, with her picture. My father would never tell anyone about that." It sounded specific enough to check. Keeping the shotgun in hand, I backed toward the fireplace, never taking my eyes off the window. At the mantle, I felt along the right side. My fingers found a small, nearly invisible catch. A panel slid open, revealing a small space. Inside was exactly what he described, a gold heart-shaped locket. I returned to the window and held it up. "This it?" Relief washed over his face. "Yes, now please let me in." I hesitated, torn. If he was really Earl's son, leaving him outside was condemning him to death. If he wasn't, a distant howl made the decision for me. It was far off but moving closer. Whatever I was going to do, it needed to be now. I moved the barricade away from the door, keeping the shotgun ready. Sliding the wooden bar aside, I opened the door a crack. "Come in, quickly!" James rushed inside. I immediately rebarred the door behind him. He crossed to where his father's body lay and dropped to his knees beside it, his grief evident and raw. After a moment, he looked up at me, eyes hard. "What happened exactly?" I explained everything. My research, being chased through the forest, finding the cabin, the werewolf's attack. "You shot it?" he asked. "Twice. Injured it, but it got away." He nodded and stood up, moving to examine the barricaded window. "It'll be back. They always come back for what they start. You've encountered it before? Not directly, but I've lived with the stories all my life. Found what was left of its victims more than once. He turned to face me. Whatever that thing is, it's not just an animal. It hunts specific people sometimes. Torments them. Why? What does it want? James shook his head. Who knows what drives a cursed thing like that? Hunger? Hatred? Madness? Another howl sounded, closer now. We need to prepare, James said, taking charge. How many shells left? 3. Not enough. He crossed to a chest at the foot of the bed and opened it. Inside was a collection of hunting gear. He retrieved a crossbow and several bolts. Not silver, but better than nothing. As he straightened, my eyes fell on his left arm. He'd rolled up his sleeves, and a distinctive scar was visible on his forearm. 3 parallel lines like claw marks. How'd you get that? I asked, gesturing to the scar. He glanced down. Hunting accident. Years ago. Something didn't feel right. The atmosphere in the cabin had changed, become charged with an unspoken tension. I raised the shotgun slightly, not aiming it at him directly, but making it clear I could. Hunting what exactly? His eyes met mine, something shifting behind them. Does it matter? It might. A smile spread slowly across his face. Not friendly, not reassuring. You're smarter than you look, journalist. Most people wouldn't have noticed. My grip tightened on the shotgun. Notice what? He laughed, a sound that raised the hairs on my neck. That I've been lying, though not about being James Crowley. That much is true. What else have you been lying about? He set the crossbow down deliberately. I didn't walk here because my truck broke down. I abandoned it a mile back and transformed in the woods. Then I circled around. Ice filled my veins. You ... Yes, me. His voice lowered, roughened. I am what you've been hunting, Michael Reeves. Or rather, what's been hunting you. I fired the shotgun without hesitation. The blast hit him square in the chest, throwing him against the wall. Any normal man would have died instantly. James Crowley merely grunted in pain and remained standing. He looked down at the wound, then back at me, eyes beginning to glow with that same yellow light I'd seen in the forest. That hurt, he growled, his voice no longer entirely human. But as my father probably told you, regular ammunition can't kill me. I pumped the shotgun, chambering another round. Stay back. He took a step forward, his body beginning to change, shoulders widening, fingers lengthening into claws. You've been asking all the wrong questions, Michael. You wanted to know about the beast of Blackwater County, but you never asked why it chose you. I fired again. He staggered but kept coming, the transformation accelerating. Fur erupted from his skin, his face elongated into a muzzle filled with razor-sharp teeth. Why? I demanded, backing away, my voice barely working. Why me? Because you're one of us, he growled, the words distorted as his mouth completed its transformation. You just don't know it yet. I fired the final shell. It slowed him for only a moment. The shotgun was empty now, useless. My back hit the wall, nowhere left to retreat. The silver knife in my pocket was my only remaining weapon. I pulled it out, holding it before me. James, now fully transformed into the werewolf, paused at the sight of the silver, his yellow eyes fixed on the blade. You don't understand your own nature, he growled, the words barely intelligible through his wolf's muzzle. Your own heritage. I'm nothing like you, I said, brandishing the knife. No? Why do you think you were drawn to these legends? To this place? He circled me slowly. Why do you think the moon calls to your blood? Shut up! You felt it all your life. The restlessness, the rage just beneath the surface, the hunger. He moved closer. You've never belonged in their world because you're meant for this one. I lunged with the knife, catching him across the arm. He howled in pain as the silver made contact, recoiling. Your father was one of us, he snarled. He abandoned our pack, lived among humans, sired you. We've been searching for his offspring for years. The claim hit me like a physical blow. You're lying. Am I? Ask yourself how I knew your name in the forest, how I tracked you specifically through miles of woods. My mind raced. The father I'd barely known, distant, prone to unexplained absences, especially around the full moon. His violent temper, the way he'd disappear for days then return with no explanation. Number. It couldn't be true. Your blood calls to the change, James growled. It's already beginning. Why do you think you can see so clearly in this dark cabin? Why can you hear the mice in the walls? The owl a quarter-mile away? I hadn't consciously registered these things, but he was right. My senses had been unnaturally sharp all night. The first change is always triggered by proximity to another of our kind, he continued. That's why I've been hunting you, to awaken what sleeps in your blood. My hand trembled, the knife wavering. I'll kill myself before I become like you. He laughed, a chilling sound from a werewolf's throat. Many have said that. None have followed through once they taste the power, the freedom. He lunged suddenly, faster than I could react. His claws caught my knife hand, sending the blade clattering across the floor. His other hand seized my throat, lifting me off the ground. I could kill you now, he growled, but that's not why I've come. Your pack, lost pack, returned. His claws dug into my skin, drawing blood. The pain was intense, but something else followed. A burning sensation that spread rapidly from the wounds throughout my body. What did you do to me? I gasped. He released me and I collapsed to the floor. The burning intensified, becoming agony. I've awakened what was already there, he said, stepping back. The change comes now. Don't fight it. Surrender to your true nature. The pain was unbearable. Bones shifting, muscles tearing and rebuilding. I screamed, the sound transforming halfway into a howl. Yes, James encouraged, circling me as I writhed. Let it come. Some last, desperate part of my human consciousness rebelled. Through tear-blurred eyes, I spotted the silver knife where it had fallen. With what felt like the last of my humanity, I lunged for it. My fingers closed around the handle as another wave of transformation racked my body. Hair, no, fur, was erupting from my skin. My vision was changing, colors fading but shapes becoming sharper. James realized what I was doing too late. I drove the silver knife upward with all my strength, bearing it in his chest. His howl of agony filled the cabin. He staggered back, clawing at the knife. Where the silver touched, his flesh smoked and blackened. You fool, he gasped, the words barely recognizable. You could have been magnificent. He collapsed, his body convulsing. Before my distorting vision, he began to change back. Fur receding, limbs returning to human form. In death, the curse was lifting. But for me, the transformation continued. I fought it with everything I had, focusing on my humanity, my identity. Michael Reeves, journalist, human. Dawn was approaching. I could sense it with my heightening awareness. If I could just hold out until sunrise. The hours that followed were a nightmare of pain and struggle as my body tried to reshape itself against my will. I clung to human thoughts, human memories, fighting the bestial instincts that rose within me. When the first ray of sunlight pierced through the broken window, it touched my fur-covered arm like a blessing. The transformation, not fully completed, began to reverse. Agonizingly slowly, I returned to human form. I lay on the cabin floor, exhausted beyond measure, between the bodies of father and son, both victims and perpetuators of an ancient curse. What James had said about my father, could it be true? I had so many questions that might never be answered. But one thing was certain, the curse that had claimed the Crowleys now lived in my blood too. As I finally gathered strength to stand, I knew my life had irrevocably changed. The beast of Blackwater County wasn't gone. It had merely changed hosts. I burned the cabin with both bodies inside, hoping the silver knife would ensure James Crowley stayed dead. Then I began the long walk back to civilization, knowing I carried something monstrous within me now. The full moon would come again next month, and with it, the true test of my humanity. For now, though, I was still Michael Reeves, still human, mostly, and I had research to do. If I carried this curse, there must be a way to break it. As I emerged from the forest into the clear light of morning, A wolf howled in the distance. A normal wolf, I told myself. But my blood stirred in response nonetheless. The werewolf of Missouri lives on, in me, and my hunt has only just begun.